fighters. Now I think they have luck on the foreign fighters.
On display, weapons troops found in residential homes. Among them, homemade mortar tubes and mortars larger than anything the Iraqis have at their disposal. Another significant gain in this area, the Gayyara Air Base, the third largest in Iraq, much of it destroyed by ISIS fighters as they withdrew, leaving, we are told, explosives under piles of dirt on the runways that need to be cleared. This will be a vital forward base for the Iraqis and potentially U.S. forces. Families wearily haul what they can, stumbling away from the fighting.
They took half of our men. They forced them to fight for them. They killed my father.
Tears for all that they lost. Loved ones gone in a war that few can fully comprehend. The lives they knew and loved disintegrated years ago. To the southeast of Mosul, the Kurdish Peshmerga have pushed their front line forward as well. The Peshmerga defensive berm snakes its way along the east and north. The village is controlled by ISIS visible in the distance. Here too they have noticed ISIS weakening, showing us how ISIS moves within nondescript buildings like this.
The Peshmerga fighters did initially drop down and take a few steps into what appeared to be some sort of tunnel, but rather than take their chances, they decided to then withdraw and seal off the entrance.
The chokehold around Mosul is tightening, and the government's pledge to liberate the city by the end of the year is still the goal. The battle there, with over 1 million civilians, will potentially be starkly different from the ones out here. But success will be defined in land gained, not lives destroyed or lost.
And Arwa Damon joining me now from nearby Erbil. Tell us, Arwa, more about what you have been witnessing today.
Well, we were down at that front line in Gayyara, the town you heard us speaking about in the report, and those images of that thick black smoke rising. And for the entire day, it still continued to darken all of the skies. But despite that, we did see numerous coalition airstrikes. We saw the Iraqi security forces very slow going for them, because one of the roads that they were trying to use to the south to enter into the city was inlaid with roadside bombs. There were vehicles that were booby-trapped. It's in that area that they were attacked by some of those ISIS fighters driving vehicles, basically suicide car bombers attempting to attack them. But the other aspect of all of this, when we're talking about military preparedness, is of course the humanitarian side of it. And Brianna, there's an estimated, according to Iraqi commanders, 10,000 civilians in the town of Gayyara alone. And we don't know what's happened to them at this stage. We do know that historically ISIS has used the civilian population as human shields. And one can only imagine that there are children, there are parents, they're trying to protect their children from the violence, trying to look for, but failing at this stage to find escape routes. And what we're seeing when it comes to Gayyara in and of itself is really just a fraction of the military challenges the Iraqis are going to be facing, but also the potential humanitarian catastrophe that is going to be generated once they do reach their final target, and that is Iraq's second largest city, Mosul.
And how does the battle shift the closer they get to Mosul?
Well, that's what's been interesting to a certain degree, because bar what we're seeing right now in Gayyara, both the Iraqis and the Kurdish Peshmerga are saying that they're seeing ISIS fighters putting up less of a fight than they had experienced in the past. The ISIS positions outside of the city of Mosul itself, but even within it, have been the subject of some very heavy coalition airstrikes. And in fact, everyone will admit that without the coalition support that they're receiving, they wouldn't have been able to reach the point that they're at today. But the key issue is that Mosul is going to most likely be very different, because most of these villages and towns are in open terrain and they're fairly small. Mosul is a city with anywhere from 1 to 2 million people. It has some very winding, densely packed roads that would be ideal for an entity like ISIS to use if it wants to try to draw in Iraqi security forces and engage them in street-to-street combat. It also has some very well-developed portions of the city. So there's great concerns about the civilian population there. And this is the assault on the city of Mosul is the largest assault to take place on a single city by a military in Iraq since the U.S.-led invasion of 2003. So that gives you a bit of an idea of the challenges that lie ahead. And of course, there is the unpredictability of all of this, because ISIS is known to be an enemy that very easily morphs and quickly changes its tactics.
All right, Arwa Damon, thank you so much for that great report. And Arwa tomorrow has the story of the refugee children who have had to flee the city of Mosul.